Hello, welcome to your Global Fashion and Supply Chain podcast. Today, Thursday, April 9. Hormuz stays closed even after the ceasefire. Vietnam pulls ahead in the production race. H&M bets on sustainability but cuts design jobs in Paris. And Levi's proves denim still has legs. I'm Sedat Sezer, breaking down the news and insights you need to start your day. Let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest logistics story of the week. A US-Iran ceasefire has been reached, and you might think that means ships are heading back through the Strait of Hormuz. Think again. Hapag-Lloyd and Maersk have both made it clear they are not returning to Hormuz routes until full security is verified. And I find this decision correct. We all saw what happened yesterday. In front of the whole world, Israel committed one of its biggest massacres again, just hours after the ceasefire, less than a day later. Iran announced that it was stopping the crossings again. What did we say yesterday? This ceasefire is not a solution right now. At best, it's just a pause. And given the fragility of this ceasefire, the timeline is anyone's guess. Here's what this means practically. Every day, those ships stay on alternative routes. The freight cost premium stays baked in. Insurance premiums stay elevated. Lead times stay stretched. For fashion and textile sourcing, where cost model is built on predictable logistic windows, this prolonged uncertainty is damaging in a way that's hard to quantify on a single spreadsheet line. If you're a Turkish manufacturer shipping to Europe or beyond, you are not just dealing with longer transit. You are absorbing costs that were never in the original contract. And the brands you are supplying, they are watching their own margins shrink too. Nobody is absorbing this easily. This connects directly to the macroeconomy out of Europe. Eurozone business activity fell to a 9-month low in March, according to S&P Global's composite PMI data. Services and manufacturing both weakening at the same time is not a good combination, and Europe is Turkey's largest export market. When European brands feel demand pressure, the first thing they do is slow down orders. The second thing they do is renegotiate price. If you are staying on a nearshore sourcing advantage, and Turkey does have one, that advantage only holds if you can demonstrate total cost value, not just proximity. Right now, the story in Europe is demand softness, and Turkish exporters need to be watching this closely. Now here's where it gets interesting. While Europe slows down, Vietnam accelerates. The country's textile industrial production index grew 8.6% year-on-year in Q1. Apparel specifically was up to 8.4%. These are not minor fluctuations. This is a manufacturing base that is scaling with purpose. Vietnam has been benefiting from the same China plus one diversification logic that's been circulating for years. But the difference now is that they are not just absorbing overflow capacity, they are building genuine infrastructure. For Turkish manufacturers, this matters because the competitive pressure is not abstract. When a European buyer has to decide where to place an order and cost is tightening, Vietnam is increasingly a credible alternative to Turkey at the volume end of the market. Turkey needs to compete on speed, compliance, and sustainability documentation, not on price alone. On the sustainability front, H&M is giving us two stories in one day, and they tell a complicated tale. First, Business of Fashion reported that H&M has actually achieved strong climate performance metrics, yet still can't convince investors that sustainability is a growth engine. Sales declined. The brand is trying to move away from its fast fashion image, but the market isn't rewarding that move financially. At least not yet. The tension here is real. A brand that's genuinely improving its environmental credentials but struggling to monetize that story is in a difficult strategic position. For Turkish suppliers working with H&M, the implication is that sustainability certification is increasingly mandatory, not a differentiator. H&M will demand it, regardless of whether it helps their own top line. The second H&M story is the planned closure of the Other Stories design studio in France. The French trade union Forswear flagged job cuts first, and H&M has now confirmed the closure. This is part of a broader cost consolidation strategy across the group. From a supply chain perspective, when brands consolidate their design footprint, pulling studios back to headquarters or to lower cost credit hubs, it usually accelerates the push to standardize supplier relationships too. Fewer design touchpoints means fewer opportunities for nearshore manufacturers to influence product development conversations. Turkish suppliers who have built collaborative relationships with brands' European design teams should be paying attention to where those teams are moving. Levi's brought some good news into the week, reporting 14% revenue growth in Q1 this year, beating guidance. Direct-to-consumer channels are performing well, and denim demand is holding up. For Turkish manufacturers in the denim segment, this is a positive demand signal. Turkey remains a significant denim producer, and when the category leader posts this kind of growth, it usually means order books stay healthy further down the chain. And one final data point worth mentioning today. Italy's courts lifted judicial controls over a Valentino production unit that had been flagged for Chinese subcontractor labor practices. The case itself is resolved, but the precedent it sets is not going away. European courts and regulators are increasingly willing to impose direct oversight on luxury and fashion brand supply chain when labor compliance issues arise. For Turkish manufacturers who generally operate at a higher compliance standard than some Asian alternatives, this is a structural argument you should be making to your buyers, not waiting for them to ask. The main question I want to leave you with today is, if European demand is softening, logistic costs are still elevated, and Vietnam is growing fast, what is the one thing a Turkish manufacturer can invest in right now that none of those competitors can easily copy? That's all for today's analysis. To make sure you never miss the insights behind the number, hit subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I'm Sedat Sezer. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow, and until then, stay ahead of the curve.